Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And if you're a Star Wars fan, or if you've been curious about the next big installment, Outlaws, Ubisoft finally revealed some more details today, which includes its story, its release date, some of its pre-order information, and even a very welcome detail that keeps its price down below that costly expected AAA price tag. So we are going to get into all of that, as well as my reaction over its latest trailer. And then after that, we'll also talk about an exciting tease for the upcoming Xbox showcase. This is starting to sound like this will be a must-watch event, or at least according to one insider and yet another early leak. So do stay tuned for that, but before we get started, do make sure to hit that subscribe button. More than 50% of you still aren't subscribed, so do make sure to change that today. It's a huge help to the channel, but more importantly, it's also a great way for you to stay up to date with all of the daily gaming news. With that said, though, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with PlayStation and a possible franchise that might be getting a revival. Now, I do want to go ahead and emphasize that this is a rumor based on an older 2022 resume, so this is by no means a guarantee. But what's happening here is that Socom 111 was spotted on an online resume for David Veitch, who sadly passed away 2 years ago. You can see here posted up by PSU, they said, according to the resume, Veitch performed motion capture for the Socom project, although right now there hasn't been anything confirmed by Sony, and there's no way to verify exactly what this title is. Socom has been out of the picture for years now, but back in 2019, it was claimed by insider Tidix that Guerrilla Games had been brought in to revive the franchise. Now, based on the little information that we have, this does appear to be an unreleased Socom title, but I think that's the first thing everybody needs to kind of understand here. Even if it was in development previously, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's still currently in development today. As we're well aware, Sony has canceled a lot of different live service projects over the last couple of years, including the leaked Twisted Metal game. So it's really just hard to say if this listing means much of anything for the Socom franchise going forward. But I will say this much, I do think that Socom makes a lot of sense for PlayStation. Socom used to be a major franchise for them back on the PlayStation 2. It was actually one of the first online console games. And even though they've never really recaptured that magic on any of their other consoles, it's still a notable PlayStation IP that I'm sure a lot of people would immediately be very excited about. Even more so, it would be nice for them to have their own first-party military multiplayer experience. Obviously, Xbox scooped up Call of Duty and Activision last year. Sony was very displeased by that, because PlayStation will lose their marketing rights for Call of Duty, which has been such a boon for them for a long time. But something that Sony could do here is that they could develop their own military game, and that could possibly be Socom. Again, though, I mean, this is a very shaky rumor right now. On one side, when you think about it, yes, I do think that it makes some sense, and I wouldn't doubt it at all if Sony previously looked into reviving Socom, especially under Jim Ryan, just because, he believed that live service was the future of gaming. Whether that actually means it got greenlit, though, or if it's still in development, that's an entirely different question, and I feel like that's where it's a little harder to say based on the little information that we have so far on whether or not that this is true. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Would you like to see the return of Socom for PlayStation? Now, speaking of competitive military shooters, though, we might as well go ahead and talk about the next Battlefield game, and actually, Dead Space as well. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. But we keep hearing about how this next Battlefield will be a return to form, and hopefully, that will be the case. At the bare minimum, EA seems to be saying all of the right things. Now, whether they actually apply that logic, I guess we'll see about all of that. But in a surprise move, they just put another studio on the Battlefield universe. That would be the studio behind the Dead Space remake, EA Motive. So with their addition, that means that the Battlefield universe now includes them, DICE, Criterion, and Ripple Effect. Now, the reason that all of this is important to know, and this is kind of similar to the Call of Duty Activision situation, this more or less means that EA is taking resources away from their other possible projects in order to get Battlefield out the door. So this has brought forth a major question. What does this mean for Dead Space 2 and a possible remake? A lot of fans really want that sequel to be remade, and EA Motive previously suggested that they do have some interest in a Dead Space 2 remake as long as the first game has success. So it's really just a question of whether or not that first remake sold well enough to prove to EA it has a future over some of these other franchises. But so far, EA Motive has already announced the development for a new Iron Man game, and now on top of that, we also now know that they will be helping out with Battlefield as well. So with that, yeah, some fans have taken this news as a bad sign for the future of Dead Space, and, truthfully, it would be a shame if we don't get more Dead Space. That Dead Space remake was honestly just so amazing. If you haven't already played it, I'd highly recommend it. But, I guess we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's go and talk about this big game reveal that Ubisoft just made today. There's been a lot of build-up over Star Wars Outlaws, and I think rightfully so. They first revealed its gameplay last year, and you can immediately see that there's a lot of potential for this to be a great Star Wars experience. It's open world, there's guns, there's vehicular combat, and you can even take off, fly, and battle in space. It really seems like this is a very ambitious Star Wars game, and I'd say in a lot of ways, this is kind of a dream game for Star Wars fans, similar to how Hogwarts Legacy was for Harry Potter fans. So Outlaws is probably one of the most anticipated games this year, and that's why I'm so happy to say that we did get some concrete details today. It's now official. They just dropped a new story trailer as well as a breakdown, and it will release on August 30th for $70 US. Yes, unfortunately, it is another $70 game, but I feel like that's kind of expected by this point for AAA titles. The good news here, though, is that if you want, you can simply subscribe to Ubisoft Plus Premium, where it will also release day one. Similar to Xbox Game Pass, this is their new attraction to Ubisoft Plus Premium, and apparently that does include Star Wars. So Ubisoft Plus Premium goes for $18 a month, and that means that you could technically play Star Wars Outlaws for as little as $18, depending on how long you want to subscribe and how long it takes you to complete it. So that is a very viable and consumer-friendly option. Now, if you just want to outright purchase it, though, there will be various options. Like I just said, you can get the standard edition for $70, or you can go with the gold edition, which will run you $110. That will come included with its season pass, which will be 2 narrative expansions. It'll also have an exclusive Jabba mission, and you'll get a cosmetic pack on top of 3 days of early access. Or they also have a third option. If you want to shell out $130 for the Ultimate Edition, you'll get everything that I just mentioned, plus even more digital goodies. So yeah, this game could cost you a pretty penny depending on which option you want to go with. But that leads me to what I actually think about this game. I keep describing it by saying that it has a lot of potential because I truly believe that. But today's trailer for me personally didn't exactly do much to prove that it will actually reach that potential. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, I still need to see more gameplay. I think the trailer itself was fine for what it is. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was mind-blowing or anything like that, but it was solid. It really just kind of felt like your typical Disney trailer, and if anything, I think that if you're a longtime Star Wars fan, the sight of returning characters like Jabba the Hutt is going to be something that's very exciting for a lot of people. Outside of the trailer, though, I did really enjoy the breakdown and how they described it. I do think the premise of Outlaws is really interesting. I like the idea of playing as a different type of character in the Star Wars universe. You're not just some super powerful Jedi, and it's different, but it's a new, interesting way to interact with its galaxy. You play as more of a regular person, and you work with the underworld, and you form alliances with different syndicates and take on various jobs. It also seems like there's going to be some stealth elements in its gameplay, and I just really like the idea of this game, and I think that it sounds very strong on paper. Ultimately, though, at the end of the day, like I said before, I just need to see it in action for myself before I give it a more definitive opinion. Right now, though, in the back of my mind, I just kind of understand that this is the combination of Ubisoft and Disney, neither of which exactly bodes a lot of confidence for me personally. At least Massive Entertainment is the studio, which, they did a good job with the Division games, so that's hopefully a good sign. For now, though, I'm still in that wait-and-see mode until we at least get more gameplay, and then I'll kind of decide on how I feel about this game. But for the time being, I do remain optimistic, just because it does sound really good on paper. I do want to hear from you Star Wars fans out there, though. How are you feeling about today's reveal? Did it get you more hyped, or are you like me, and are you just kind of optimistically cautious? Now, before we go, though, we got another tease and leak for the Xbox Summer Showcase. Last week, as we talked about, some of their game reveals leaked a little bit early, and that includes Gears of War, Microsoft Flight Sim 2024, Avowed, Indiana Jones, and then also the next Call of Duty game rumored to be the next Black Ops title. So I think that alone already sounds really great on paper. But now, on top of that, Nate the Hate seems to be piling onto that hype train by saying this. Depending on how Microsoft approaches this June showcase, it could be one of their best presentations. Depends on what they want to headline in June, hold for the Game Awards, and then highlight early next year. Like I said last week, the games that they leaked early doesn't include their entire summer showcase. There could still be some more surprises, and Nate's comment kind of seems to lean in that direction. There could be some other major announcements at this showcase, depending on how Xbox wants to go about their announcement plans. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily overly surprising, though, and the reason I say that is just because Xbox has so many studios now, and we are getting to that point where a lot of their games should be close to release, whether that be Fable, Perfect Dark, Clockwork Revolution, or State of Decay 3. Those are all known games that are in the pipeline. And then you have other studios that we don't know about, like id Software, which could potentially reveal something like, let's say, a new Quake. They also have Double Fine. We haven't seen them in a while. Rare is still working on Everwild. That game supposedly got a reboot. There's also Activision Blizzard in all of their studios. And this doesn't even include their exclusive third-party partnerships with Xbox Game Studios. Even a new Banjo-Kazooie is currently in the rumor mill. So there's just so many potential announcements that they could make because they have so many resources now. Now, I'm sure that they'll spread a lot of those announcements out. They're not going to make all of those at the summer showcase. But honestly, if I were them, I would go out of my way to make sure that this summer showcase is huge. And the reason I say that is because the Xbox brand all year long has been under a lot of scrutiny. So this is kind of their chance at redemption, to kind of get some of that momentum back by just showcasing a ton of first-party games. Give Xbox fans a reason to be excited for the brand. Now, there was also one more leak that was connected to this, though, and this has been something the fans have asked a lot about since the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. They completed the buyout late last year, but fans are still waiting on those Xbox Game Pass inclusions. Well, according to Tom Henderson over on Insider Gaming, you might not have to wait too much longer. He claimed that his sources told him that Xbox is ramping up for an announcement on its back catalog Activision Blizzard games at potentially the Xbox Summer Showcase. So this could finally include a lot of those older Call of Duty games and possibly even more. That wait could be over in just a few months, and this honestly will be a huge announcement when it does eventually happen. I'm just kind of curious if they're going to give us last year's Call of Duty, or are they going to just try to push out the older Call of Duties first? I'm kind of curious how they go about all of that, but nonetheless, let the hype begin. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but do let me hear your thoughts about the Star Wars trailer. How do you feel about it? But until next time, peace out.